of the weekend. And then last time out when we were in Miami, well, what a spectacular race we had. And it had a dramatic conclusion as well. A post-race penalty plethora for a variety of different drivers saw Pascal Wehrlein eventually being crowned as the victor of that E-Prix. You can see the hills of Monaco looking absolutely resplendent in the early morning sunshine here. Quite cool in terms of the air temperature so far, about 16, 17 degrees. Expected to get to highs of around the early 20s as the day progresses on. But drivers are all ready and good to go ahead of free practice one later on this morning at this historic circuit. My name is Tom Brooks, alongside me Karun Chandok and David Coulthard to guide you through the action. At DC, brilliant race that we had in Miami a fortnight ago. Oliver Rowland's championship lead though shrunk down a little bit, but of course 2 races here this weekend.
Yeah, well look, that was then, this is now, and what racing drivers do, I think all sports people do, is they're always looking for the next opportunity.
No doubt about it. You can see Antonio Felix da Costa there, just a few points ahead of his teammate Pascal Wehrlein, who catapulted himself up the order. Let's take a closer look at this Monaco circuit. It doesn't really need much of an introduction. 3.3 kilometres long. Karun Chandok, you know this place pretty well from working here in Formula One, also racing here as well. You ended up a unfortunate victim of some double parking back in 2010. But talk us through this track.
Yeah, it's a fantastic track, isn't it? Every corner is iconic in itself. This is the place where we have the attack mode, where the drivers will get extra power and four-wheel drive. That's up at Casino Square. Through the tunnel into one of the best overtaking spots into the chicane. We saw some brilliant overtaking here a few years ago. Antonio Felix da Costa, that time with the DS Penske team, getting past Mitch Evans on the final lap. Then you get through to back, incredibly fast left-hand corner where you've got to be precise. Through the swimming pools section, comfortably flat out for the first bit, but very tricky the second part. And then you come to the last 2 corners, the Rascasse and Anthony Knowles. A fantastic circuit, and one that actually I think really suits Formula E, because the cars are small enough that you get great wheel-to-wheel racing, great overtaking opportunities, and the attack mode will be powerful this weekend too.
Yeah, it certainly will be. A doubleheader this weekend means we've got 2 different races as well. For the first time since Saudi Arabia back in February, we see the return of Pit Boost here today. And essentially what that means, if you're new to Formula E, is the drivers will be coming in to the box, making a stop for about 34 seconds or so, taking an extra 10% worth of energy during the race. Then they'll go out, and it basically adds a different dynamic in terms of strategy here this weekend. In terms of the race tomorrow, it's a much more traditional race in Formula E terms. No pit boost stops for the drivers to have to worry about. So it'll be interesting to see who is able to exploit the maximum out of these circumstances here this weekend. In terms of pit boost, DC, it always ends up being quite exciting having 2 different races and seeing who can get the maximum out of the car today, but then also in the change of circumstances tomorrow.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of debate as we went into the first round that it was used as to how it would be deployed, and would there just be a big mass of cars heading to pit lane. But the reality is it always comes down to where your individual race is at that time, and how do you the quickest strategy to get to the checkered flag. So yeah, the teams will deploy whatever works best for their individual driver, and the only complication in that is what teammates doing.
Green light is on at the end of pit lane. Free practice one commences here in Monaco. Slightly shorter in terms of the sessions. We've had 40-minute free practice sessions over the course of season 11 so far, but a 30-minute session for FP1 this morning. The same as well for FP2 a little bit later on as the cars emerge onto the circuit for the first time. And just to give you an idea of how little in terms of running they've had here, there's been no on-track action at all this weekend because the roads weren't shut until 5 o'clock this morning, which also gave the very unique characteristics, Karun, of doing the track walk with the public and cars and scooters and all sorts going around.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, this is a circuit I think most of the drivers have driven at before, either in Formula E or in other categories. So, I think in a way that the track walk is a little reminder for where for example, those sensors, the attack mode sensors, are now 10 meters earlier this year, so it's a chance to look at that and a few other bits and pieces. But for the most part, as we get this fantastic view from a high up above on the drone, it's a circuit that the drivers know their way around.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Everybody who is on the grid has raced here in one capacity or another over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I found a track walk Monaco utterly useless because you always had people and cars and buses and stuff in the way. You couldn't actually see anything. I mean,
well, what I used to do, sunrise, get out my bicycle. Every year I'd be out before anyone was up, and not only did I feel I was sort of seizing the day, but I was seizing a moment of clarity. And you could ride your bicycle through Casino Square when it was the morning of a, you know, the build up to the actual racing, in a way you couldn't normally. Bikes and scooters, because that doesn't make the casino look pretty. Yeah, so, and I would watch videos, in-car videos from previous years, and I would want to be first at the end of the pit lane for the first session. Again, it was all about that mental ownership of, this is my track, and I'm going to go and make best of it.
Well, the drivers will be looking to make best of it. I think 7 drivers, at least on the Formula E grid, are full-time residents here of Monte Carlo, so I wonder whether that local knowledge will be helping them here this weekend. I
think, yeah, having familiarity is definitely a good thing. Day-to-day driving of this, the streets of Monte Carlo, you don't really get the impression you're on a Grand Prix track because the barriers aren't there. You know, it takes 3 months to put the track up and a month to take it away. So for that sort of 4 months of the year, you're very much aware this is a Grand Prix or Formula E or historic pre-circuit. But for the rest of the time, it's just a lovely little principality in the coast of the Mediterranean.
There's worse places to be, that's for sure. So a full course yellow test for the drivers and the teams. This is essentially a systems test that we do in free practice 1, just to make sure the drivers can hear the team radio.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, green flag, please.
And also here, race director Marek Hanaszewski all around the circuit as well. So just making sure that all systems are working, which seems like they are. Full course yellow has ended as we look at Pascal Wehrlein, the reigning world champion, making his way down into the Fairmont hairpin. It's amazing actually the elevation and how little of it you see on the cameras, Karun, because actually even that hairpin, there's a big drop off going down through that corner.
Yeah, absolutely. You see the inside front tyre tend to lift off the ground. It's just, you know, the way the track drops away there. And even from this camera angle, right, from the overhead road loop camera as well, it is quite hard. Like this bit here, you drop quite steeply downhill on the braking for the chicane. So, yeah, it is an amazing circuit to drive, and I think
we need 1 more lap at least. Understood. So let's do that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think what you do need, like on every other street circuit, is confidence. You need a car that's going to be comfortable. It's going to give you a little bit of wiggle room, especially in the early stages when the track's still quite green. You know, you want a car that just gives you the confidence to build up. It's not one where you just go out and hammer a lap time if you were at a big, wide open circuit.
Yeah, the circuit hasn't changed much over the years that we've been racing. A few different reprofilings. I suppose most recently you could look at the swimming pool chicane that's been opened up. Rascasse about 20 years ago, that was opened up a little bit, but the roots of this circuit still very much remain from 96 years ago when racing was first here back in 1929. So remarkable really that we still continue to race on these streets.
Yeah, I think that I think it would be very difficult to imagine that if somebody came here today and said we're going to do a race around this particular principality, it would ever get signed off. I know that we've seen, especially with Formula E, there's obviously a great deal of street circuits, and in other formulas we've seen definitely a move towards being in city racing. But it's so sort of uneven, it's so challenging in many ways that I don't think it would ever get signed off. But that's part of the charm. And as Karun well knows, when you drive the streets, and whether it's lower formulas or whether it's at the highest level of our sport, there's a real sense of occasion.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It is a wonderful place to race, and everybody says if they're going to win a Grand Prix, they're going to win a race, an E-Prix, they want to be able to win Monte Carlo. That's the one, isn't it?
Yeah, and, you know, you go, that shot of the cars going through the tunnel. You know, these drivers would have seen all of their heroes, you know, the Prosts and the Sennas and all of that driving through that, and there's really that sense of history comes across at every point. But anyway, that's for the past. As for now, they're starting to wind up, Tom. So the drivers have had 2 or 3 laps where they're weaving around, just trying to get temperature into the tires. It's obviously quite cool still in the morning. It will ramp up. It gets very hot in the afternoon. So, but at this stage, they're just, especially with the front tires, they're just trying to build up a bit of front temperature.
Yeah, it's very visible that there's not overly aggressive. They're not trying to, you know, work that tyre too hard. And yeah, it feels like they're all very knowledgeable on these tyres and just building up gently.
Yeah, just looking at Oliver Roller making his way up the hill through Saint-Devote, Beau Rivage, and in towards Casino Square. Norman Nato, also pole sitter from Miami a fortnight ago. So unlucky to be denied that victory following that penalty at the end of the race. It was a challenging time for a variety of different drivers following the penalties that were awarded for the attack mode's misusage. If you missed Miami, essentially what happened is we had a late race red flag. Lots of different drivers still have one attack mode usage left at the end of the race, and they didn't have enough time to get that completed. So within the rules and regulations of Formula E, if you use attack mode, you must have used it all by the end of the race. You can't still have even 2 seconds remaining, for example, left on that. And a few drivers fell foul of that at the end of the race, including Norman Nato, who, though he finished first on the roads, was not classified as the victor. He eventually would be classified in 6th place at the checkered flag, so that would have stung a bit.
I wonder if that, because I assume, Karun, that's a team strategy issue rather than the driver going, no, I don't want to take my attack mode earlier. I wonder if the team's still on other bonuses that would be there if you win the race.
That's a very good question. I'm guessing highly unlikely.
I used to make sure that if it was a team error, I still got bonus.
Well, yeah. You can go and ask Norman Nato if you want. His manager, Tiago Monteiro. Actually, we texted. Let's ask Tiago Monteiro.
Find out.
Still get the bonus.
See if there's an addendum in the contract.
And can Norman take us out for dinner tonight?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's have a look here at Nico Muller in the Andretti, just coming down in towards Mirabeau, front right locking.
Yeah, that's never good, is it? For that length of time, as he was exploring the attack mode.
Yeah, so he's just gone into attack mode. I reckon what's happened there is he's gone into the corner, realised that he's gone carrying a bit more speed, brake that bit later and just locked the inside front.
And dropping down into Mirabeau, it is the sort of corner that, you know, although it's sort of cambered into the apex, if you're on the high side of the road, you just can't get the car down, especially if you're locked up. So you see that they'll always try and drop into the apex relatively early. You can see it comes over the crest there. I don't know, Karun, if you ever found yourself going down the escape road there. I never did, because I never ever tried to go 100% into that corner for that very reason.
No, because yeah, it is.
The cost is too much.
Yeah, exactly that, isn't it? Sorry, I was like completely lost for words there. I was still trying to work out. Whether Norman should get his bonus for winning Miami or not.
If you're asking Tiago Monteiro about the bonus, can we ask Nico Rosberg about the escape road then?
Yeah, he went down there.
He did, yeah, about 10 years ago, wasn't it? So just making his way through to back is Jean-Louis Verne, former winner here back in the Gen 1 days of Formula E, actually, is the Frenchman. So home race effectively for Verne as he powers his way through the second and then into the third sector, coming round into Rascasse. And this is a point I was just about to make, actually. Going into qualifying, we've got the group stages in qualifying, so 11 drivers in each group, then we go into the duels. But for the group stages, there is a real possibility that drivers could get caught in traffic. I mean, we saw that the last time we were on a street circuit back in Jeddah in February.
Yeah, but I think what is quite maybe a little bit unusual for people who are new to Formula E, new to watching Formula E in Monaco, is actually this is one of the longer tracks in Formula E terms, and it's also one of the faster tracks in terms of average speeds for Formula E. You know, it's with the group stages, when you've only got 11 cars, there should be no excuse for traffic, really. You've got so much space for 11 cars to spread themselves out. It should not ever be a problem.
Looking here then at Lucas Di Grassi, just going down towards Mirabeau. Podium for him, becomes the eldest podium sitter in Formula E history off the back of that second place finish in Miami a fortnight ago.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the where they have to go for the attack mode, it looks so awkward there that the inside or the outside of the Casino Square, just close to Hotel de Paris. It almost looks as if they're pointing directly at the barrier before they then have to cut to drop down the hill.
Well, the drivers all got together and asked the FIA to pull the sensors forward because it was even closer to the barrier last year, which obviously made it extremely tricky. So yeah, but it's still a long way off the line. You know, you'll end up losing about 1.2 seconds, I think, by going that far off the line. Because obviously, as the weekend unfolds, that part will get dirtier and dustier and less grippy as well.
Yeah. So I thought I'd lose about 1.1. So where's that extra 10th that you're losing?
Somebody told me that on an Excel sheet downstairs.
Right, just over 12 minutes gone of free practice 1. Let's go down to the Lola Yamaha at garage and catch up with Thomas Biermeier. Saunders CB is down in pit lane. What have you got, Saunders?
Thanks, Tom. Coming into a very big weekend in Formula E history, you know, doubleheader in Monaco is a big thing, and you're coming off the back of your first maiden podium as a team. Good place to be.
It's a great place here. Monaco is unique. Monaco is in the calendar since season 2 or something like that, so it's always a pleasure to be here. It's a special weekend because it's the first doubleheader, so it will be a hard weekend for the guys here in the garage to stay focused until tomorrow evening, and then we will see what happens.
Monaco being a place where experience can pay off, and you've kind of got both sides of the coin. You've got Zane, who's had a couple of years experience here in other championships, and you've got Lucas, who's been racing here for 20 years.
Yes, correct, and I had a chat yesterday with Zane, and in the last 4 years he were 3 times on the podium. Podium would be unrealistic a little bit for that weekend, but he's motivated, so he's looking forward to score his first points. And Lucas, his experience is his home race, so yeah, we are prepared for the weekend.
So knowing what you know about your performance and your potential this weekend, what are you aiming for? What's your target?
Yeah, first of all, it's important to be competitive, to have a clean weekend. We need a clean weekend. We need no mistakes from drivers, no mistakes from team, reliability of the car. This is very important. And if we bring everything together, we saw we can fight for points, and the target is clearly to score some points.
2 chances to add some more points to the tally.
Yes, 2 chances, and yeah, we will see. If we score 2 times points, it would be a great weekend for us.
Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Thanks to Saunders. All about maximising the potential here in Monte Carlo. For the first time ever, it's a double header here as well. And as we said, 2 very different types of races here this weekend. Both the same in terms of duration, actually, both 29 laps, but the pit boost strategy play that's going to come into the fore today will make things, I think, very interesting, and as I said, add a different dynamic. And it's all about seeing who's going to be able to maximise that potential and call the strategy right, effectively.
Yeah. Dan Tickton to the top of the times. Hey, I have to say, I enjoyed watching the behind-the-scenes documentary. Driver has come out on last year's Formula E season, and Dan is unquestionably the star of it. So, if anyone hasn't had a chance to see it yet, I would, yeah, definitely recommend it. Especially the Dan. Was it episode 2?
Episode 2, yeah, we were in Japan. I mean, if you ever want a pantomime villain, Dan Tickton is
brilliant.
the perfect character to play that.
I've heard some fantastic stories about Dan when he goes way back to karting. He's always been someone heart on the sleeve. What you see is what you get, and yeah.
Yeah, Idris Elba.
Hollywood.
Yeah, but Idris Elba's the co-founder of the Cooper Kiro team. He's actually here today as well. We're hoping to catch up with him a little bit later on when he's on the grid. But Cooper Kiro have had a real resurgence in form, actually, over the course of 2025. New powertrain in the back of that car. Last year, they were known as ERT. Before that, they were known as Neo, where they had their own powertrain. For the Cooper Kiro guys, they now have a customer Porsche powertrain in the back of that, and it's done great things for their competitiveness, including last time out in Miami, we saw David Beckman getting into the duels for the first time for that team as well. Dan Tickton, meanwhile, currently 16th in the Drivers' Championship, couple of points finishes in the last 2 races, so he'll be hoping to add to that tally, and you never know, maybe a top 5 on the cards in front of Idris Elba here today would be a very welcome sight indeed. So looking at Robin Freight in the Envision in the pit lane, and this is just doing a pit boost charge test, essentially. So Robin's come into the box, he's come to a stop for an allocated time, 34 seconds, plugged the cable into the back, adds an extra 10% worth of energy into the back of that car. And there's an allotted time where they have to do it in the race. They've got to be between 40 and 60% in the state of charge of the battery in the race. And there's a pit window that will open. They'll come in, they'll plug the car in, 34 seconds they'll be stationary, and then they're back out in the race. And I think what was interesting last time out when we saw this, Karun, is there was an expectation from some that there would be just 2 groups of drivers coming in, but actually we saw quite a variance. Some drivers staying out for longer, you know, only 3 or 4 drivers maybe coming in on 1 lap as opposed to 11.
Yeah, ultimately though, it's about doing the right strategy for you versus your competitors around you.
Like before, it's wheel spinning a bit on it. I'm trying it to do it as much as I can. It does wheel spin a bit.
Buemi talking about some traction issues there. But yeah, no, the pit boost. I thought the Jeddah race was really interesting because, you know, in some ways it's for you know, general motor racing fans. It takes a format that people are familiar with. You know, you base your strategy based around where you think it's going to be beneficial in terms of track position and what your rivals are doing, and you know, you choose your moment to pit based on all of those factors, like you would in any other sort of conventional racing.
Dan Ticktum continuing to explore the limits as he goes fastest at this stage in first and second sectors, so he's getting on with it, obviously feeling confident.
Yeah, he's on an absolute flyer. He goes to the top of the pile by a comfortable margin. That's the first real flying lap time that we've seen in this session, the 27.990. Teammate Beckman just pops himself up into second place. Just to give you an idea of how much quicker Gen 3 Evo is compared to Gen 3 when we were here last year. Free practice one time saw Mitch Evans top, and he was top with a 1:30.4. We were at a 1:27.9, so already a couple of seconds quicker than that time at this early stage of the weekend. And this is before, of course, the track has really had a chance to rubber in, being the first session of the weekend.
And Beckman 1.4 seconds off Ticktum. That's not a great effort, really, is it, for the early running?
I'll wait for the vehicle to tell you a bit more about the plan.
No, just tell me now. It's okay. I mean, we're slow anyway.
Okay. We have to offload and have a look at this powertrain. So we're gonna be in the box for a bit longer than planned initially.
Is his engineer speaking English or another language? I could not really understand what he was saying.
Well, he's French, but he was speaking English.
Oh, okay.
Because as far as I'm aware, I don't think Nick is fluent in French.
Well, I can understand him. I very much recognise that as the English language, but...
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? There, so it looks like powertrain concerns, by the sounds of things, there for Nick Cassidy in the box. So slightly longer time stationary than he would like. There's just over 10 minutes left of this session. Given the fact that we've sort of got used to the 40-minute sessions of practice in season 11, going down to 30 minutes seems like this is absolutely flying by.
There's a great slow-mo there as he cuts the curb. I wonder just whether that would do any damage or cost a little bit of time dragging the arse on the curb.
Yeah, you just saw him sliding his way through the swimming pool chicane. As we look here at Jake Hughes coming down into the Fairmont hairpin. Mitch Evans also now back in the box for Jaguar TTS Racing. So I think what drivers are going to do here is probably come into the pit lane, as you can see, and then go out for a final run, maybe a couple of runs at the end of the session. De Vries here for the Mahindra team. This is Sam Bird. Now, if you remember 12 months ago when we were here in Monte Carlo, his session, and indeed his weekend, came to an end at Saint-Devote, where he crashed the car, had his hand on the steering wheel, and thanks to the way that it kicked back, it actually broke his wrist. So he was replaced for the rest of the weekend by Taylor Barnard, who put in a couple of brilliant performances, and now is his teammate on the other side of the McLaren garage.
He's been the star of the season, really, in so many ways, hasn't he? I think, you know, Oliver Rowland's done an amazing job to lead the championship, but Barnard, as a rookie, has got himself into contention with Rowland, the two Porsches. You know, they're the four who've sort of, they've broken up a little bit of a gap, haven't they, over the rest of the pack in terms of the championship. And Barnard's done a fantastic job this year as the rookie.
Yeah, he's been incredible. Youngest ever pole sitter, youngest ever podium finisher in Formula E. He's still got the opportunity to become the youngest ever winner this season as well. Interestingly, actually, he could become the youngest winner, but if Sam Bird takes a victory this season, he could become the oldest ever winner, which just goes to show you the difference in age between those two drivers in the McLaren garage this season.
Just looking at the onboard there, Karun, as I'm not as familiar with the dash display, there was a sort of line of red top right that sort of squared off the corner. Is that telling for locking, or are you familiar with that?
I didn't see it.
Just as he braked into the chicane.
Yeah, that's possibly.
Yeah.
Because obviously they got, with the way the energy recovery systems work, you've got the, the regen happening on the bolt axles, and that might have been a warning.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you should say that, because we had the Evo sessions in Miami, and I was watching a video of one of the content creators, Driver 61, Scott Mansell, his name is now. He raced in Bosch GP and some other series, and he was really excited to get himself out of the car, but he said he was going into the car, smashing the brake pedal 130 psi, but the maximum pressure you can put on the brakes is about 85 psi in this, because naturally you're lifting off with the regen and so on. So he was causing the car to go into like a fail-safe mode essentially. So braking too hard, having to come back into the pit lane and compromising his lap. So I wonder whether that was just maybe a warning for Sam, maybe hitting the brakes a bit too hard into one of the corners. Yeah,
it could well be. We will explore after this session, and I'll get more educated. And there's certainly plenty of information available to the driver. Most of it will just be telling him everything's fine, but there'll be little highlighted sensors that will grab his eye if there's a particular issue.
The classic always for the driver and the engineer was, driver comes into the pit lane, complains about the balance of the car, engineer says, yeah, no, we've changed a couple of bits on it, goes out and then sets the time half a second faster. Driver comes in and says, brilliant, yeah, what have you done? And they've done nothing at all.
Well, that's why I've always said an engineer is part engineer, part psychologist.
Looking here at Robin Freitz on full attack mode lap, you can see that with the magenta lights on the rear wing, and you can see also visibly how much more traction he's got. So four-wheel drive for these cars now in full attack mode, able to pull the car out of the corner. And just look at how much more stable it looks, especially over the curves.
Yeah, but he's gone in there a little bit deep, hasn't he, into that second part of the swimming pool. And if you look at his first sector's time, it's about 3/10 down on Tictum. We'll see what the last sector does. And he goes third fastest. But you have to say, Tictum's time is really holding up well. Bear in mind, he did it earlier than the others. It's holding up well at the top of the times.
There is Robin Freitz, his race engineer. Ben Scott's on one side of the Envision garage at the moment. Envision looking to try and kick off their season. If you remember last year, it wasn't a particularly brilliant defence to their team's championship as they finished quite a way down the order. Envision currently last actually in the team's championship in season 11 as well. They know they've got the potential. I was talking to Sylvain Filippi, the team principal. He again is optimistic about their chances over the course of this year, but they just need to put the whole package together over the course of the weekend and really extract the maximum and get those results coming for that team, because they know that they've done it before and they know that they can do it again. So let's hope that this is the opportunity for the weekend where their season will begin.
A little bit deep into the chicane there for Nick de Vries, but managed to still get it stopped. Let's see what the middle sector does for him, and he's up. So de Vries on a good run here, middle sector fastest of anybody, and through the last part of the chicane, bounces over that curb, try and get it braked and stopped in a straight line for Askas. Shot squirt of power before you get to Anthony Nogues, and this is where the four-wheel drive and the traction, when we get to the races with the attack mode, I think this is where we'll see the overtaking done as de Vries goes second, 12 thousandths behind Tictum's time. But you know, that traction, David, out of the last corner with four-wheel drive, that should set up the moves into Saint-Devote, shouldn't it?
Yeah, no, that must just be a spectacular feeling to be pulled from the corner as well as pushed. And it's interesting for me watching the body language of all the cars. It looks like everyone's absolutely fine with the front end getting to apexes. It looks like the rear is the thing that they're sort of, you know, at the limit of how much rear grip they have as they launch it into chicane and corners like that. So when it's working for you, it's absolutely fine. But of course, with the weight of the car, if it just steps offline slightly, we could see guys having a little spin, and a little spin here usually means a little contact with a barrier.
Well, just under 5 minutes to go in FP1 here. Jaguar currently 12th and 21st on the time machines. Make that 13th and 21st as an improvement for Verline comes through, as well as Sam Bird. Let's go down to Saunders then, who's catching up with team principal for Jaguar TCS Racing, James Barkley.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, James, let's start with the news we've just seen Nick Cassidy go back into the garage, potential powertrain issues. What can you tell us?
Yeah, it looks unfortunate like we lost our cooling pump on Nick's car. So, yeah, not a nice way to start, but we'll get that kind of changed around and get him out for FP2.
What does that mean for changing that? Is there any penalty associated with that, or is it?
No. Each car has 2 rear ends. You can rotate between those. Only if you break into a third, in essence, instead of powertrain parts, you start to incur a penalty. So yeah, we'll have a look at that and see what that is.
Okay, hopefully not too limiting for the day. Now, it is very dangerous to take or count on past results in Formula E. But when last year you have the only 1-2 that anyone's ever had in Formula E in Monaco, you must take a bit into this weekend.
Yeah, this is a very special day for us last year, and we've been on the podium here over the last 4 years, so it's been a very special event for us, and we love coming here, and everyone has another step in their stride, you know. So yeah, but you can't take anything for granted in this game, and you've got to come and do your homework and work really hard and get the results each time. So that's what our focus is today, and the track's evolving quickly. Mitch has had some first good runs there, and yeah, let's wait and see where we are at the end of FP1. But FP1, FP2 critical as we ramp up to quali.
Both drivers proven race winners here in Monaco, but what's going to be different this weekend? Because double header one thing, pit boost today, attack mode, it's different to last season. How might things be different?
Yeah, I think first things first, qualifying is going to be key today, even with the boost top, because we'll obviously have a bit more usable energy. That'll increase the pace a little bit more. So I think race 1 is going to be important for qualifying. All weekend really will be. It's nice to have a second go, second bite of the cherry, so to speak, here in Monaco, though. So it's unusual. It's a real privilege, and it's great to have two attempts at it. But yeah, the key job I think this weekend is going to be about qualifying well, and then yeah, trying to put your race together from there.
Thanks, James.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks to Saunders. Cassidy's session then coming to an early end, not the way that he'll have wanted to have started his weekend here in Monte Carlo. And that loss of track time hopefully won't hurt him too much as we head into FP2 and quali.
The times are really coming quickly now, and the Fries went quicker, is now taken over by Ticktum, who's gone with a 27.5. Airline pops up now, so we're into the last couple of minutes here. They're all pumping in some attack mode laps to just try and get an understanding as the track cleans up.
Yeah, I think at this stage it's just about building confidence, isn't it? If the car's talking to you, you start to feel that you own the racetrack, and you start nibbling away at getting closer and closer to the barriers. There's a lot of key corners like Casino Square here entering, and it's such a long corner that you've got no choice but to have to brake on the entry phase, whilst it leaves a large period in the middle, which is a bit of a nothing area of the corner, because you can't be flat, you can't be on the brakes. Normally that's a no-no for racing drivers. You should either be on the throttle or on the brake, or just a brief moment of thinking about it. But there's areas of this track where you need to be patient.
It's I wonder if there's been a concern at Jaguar for Mitch Evans' car, at least on Cassidy's problem, because he's not done an attack mode lap, so they've kept him in the lower power mode, which is unusual. You know, even as a driver, you'd want to get one run in at least in the first practice session, so you've got some data and some information to look at in the gap in between. Jake Hughes is the other one, isn't it? But he's on an out lap, so maybe he's on board with his teammate, who is in attack mode at the moment. So maybe Hughes is going late.
Yeah, home race here for Stoffel Van Dorn's team, Maserati MSG. And look at the traffic coming through the swimming pool there. Just that lap completely spoiled by 3 cars just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, they all kind of did their best to get out of the way, but it just puts doubt in your mind. You know, you've got it nailed, and you've got cars, and you're going, have they seen me?
Evans is about to start his attack mode lap, so they've left it late, 15 seconds to go, and Evans has just come across the line.
Yeah, so he'll be starting that lap then. It'll be a one and done end to the session for Mitch Evans. Here's Jake Dennis up the order in 5th place, looking good so far for Dennis in the Andretti. Checkered flag is now out. Ticktum's the first driver to take it. Doesn't improve on the 27.5 that he set a few minutes ago, but as you can see with the tiny screen on the left hand side lighting up like a rental car dashboard, lots of drivers in push laps at the moment at the end of this session. So let's see how much this order is going to change as we look at Dennis making his way through 48 and into the tunnel.
What do you do to your rental cars that you have all the lights go off?
Yeah,
it's why I take out full insurance. Down in towards the chicane then for Dennis. Nice exit out of there. He got lap time deleted there actually a few minutes ago for track limits, but no such problems. Really close to the wall on the inside off to back.
You've got to be kissing that barrier at the inside of the back. Everything you win there, millimetre-wise, you just gain in exit speed.
Down through in towards Raskas. No traffic issues for Dennis at the moment. De Grassi's just improved his time in the Lola Yamaha Apt car up to 12th place. De Costa a bit further down the order than he'd like at the moment in 14th place. Freins also makes an improvement in the closing stage of this session. Dennis does likewise as well, up into 4th place. Here's Evans. What can he do in his one and only attack mode lap? It's only 15th quickest. De Costa up to 6th place there in the second of the Tag Heuer Porsches as well.
Wow, I mean, Evans, yeah, 1.4 seconds off. That's a big margin, really.
And a yellow flag down at 18 as well. That's in towards Raskas. A few drivers just going a bit slow through there at the end of the session, I think. But everybody who was on the track has now taken the checkered flag. Of course, Nick Cassidy mired in pit lane following the rear powertrain struggles that he's been suffering with in this session. So hopefully the team can get that sorted and get him out for FP2, which isn't too far away, actually. It kicks off at 9:10 local time. That's in just over an hour, so not a lot of opportunity for that team to get everything fixed and righted.
So they're going to do their practice starts down on the grid. So good session for Tictum. He looked comfortable, didn't he, right from the off. He was always sort of, you know, in that top group of lap times. Every time he came across and improved, and other people improved, he tended to stay in that top group. So yeah, it's a good start to his weekend.
Loves the street circuit, does Dan Tictum, two-time Macau Grand Prix winner in Formula 3. And in terms of here in Monaco, he'll argue that he's never had the right package underneath him to be able to extract the potential. If FP1 is anything to go by, it certainly looks like this year could be a bit more competitive for the British driver. Let's see what it looks like when we go into FP2, and of course, more importantly, qualifying at 22:11 this morning. So practice starts taking place then here on the grid. The 5 lights go on and the drivers make their way down towards Sandervoort as they rise up the hill. On board here with Mitch Evans. Only 17th quickest eventually at the end of that session. Of course, only one full attack mode lap for the Kiwi. Not a particularly brilliant start to Jaguars Day.
No, absolutely not. They'll be concerned, I think, at the pace early on, but it's a long day here. The track temperature is going to rise, and we'll see how the day unfolds. But here we go for his practice start.
Yeah, we'll sit on board with him. You see the driver in front was just doing some burnouts. What do you reckon to this here, DC?
I think it's always a magical moment for any race driver to practice your start, ace it, and bank it as confidence for when it comes to the race.
It's amazing how quick they're able to pull away now with four-wheel drive as well. It's just, driving an EV, you get torque instantly anyway, but incredible. Catch up with Mitch Evans then. DC, let's have a chat.
Tack practice, just keep following beeps if possible.
Mitch, hi, David Coulthard joining you in the car. You're the previous winner of this race, so best man to talk us around the challenge of Monte Carlo.
I guess so. Or yourself. Yeah, mate. So just finish up here. It's very cold. Just getting used to these new tires, and the four-wheel drive around here is quite a bit different to last year. So yeah, we didn't quite get through our run plan, but we'll make some tweaks for FP2.
And in terms of the racetrack, put us in the cockpit. Unique challenges as you approach the chicane.
Yeah, tricky braking zone into there to get, you know, right to the next to the Armco, and then up to the back. It's been a few victims through here over the years, so you want to hug nice and tight, but obviously it's very easy to hit the inside wall. They want, you know, the fastest part of the track here, very hard to between and, you know, get everything linked up. It's all kind of one corner, and then to try and finish that strong here is really, really important. But 2 slow speed corners is a lot of time gain and loss there. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting one today.
Yeah, and just summarise for us, Monte Carlo as one of the tracks in the season, one of the favourites?
Boxing in the pit boost box.
Definitely my favourite. I love this place. It's a privilege to be here.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much and good luck for the weekend.
Okay, Mitch, you can pull forward.
Good to hear there from Mitch Evans. So, only 17th fastest for him in the Jaguar, but a track he knows very well. As he said, his favourite on the calendar. Also a resident of Monaco as well, so one that I'm sure he drives around pretty much almost every day. Let's get confirmation of the classification then at free practice 1 here in Monte Carlo. So it is Dan Ticktum who leads a session for the first time ever in a E-Prix Round ahead of Pascal Wehrlein, and Nick de Vries up there for third in the Mahindra ahead of Jake Dennis, Eder Montaro, making it 2 Mahindras inside the top 5. Then it's Da Costa, Roland and Nato, Jake Hughes and Maximilian Günther completing the top 10 here. Very tight margins inside the top 10, just 0.8 of a second separating those drivers. Verne just outside of the top 10 ahead of Freins, then Taylor Barnard, Buemi, De Grassi, Beckman. Evans, who we just spoke to a few moments ago, in 17th, quickest ahead of Muller, Bird, Van Dorn, Maloney, and then Nick Cassidy, those powertrain issues for him, of course, thwarting the end of that session, and he concludes it 22nd fastest. But an exciting first free practice session, only 30 minutes long, absolutely flew by here in the Principality, and they'll be coming through thick and fast today as well. FP2 along the way at 9:10 local time, so in just over 1 hour's time for that one. Then we're straight into qualifying, and the E-Prix takes place at 3 here this afternoon. Drivers began to build themselves up and build their pace up over the course of that session as the sun shone in the early morning light here in Monte Carlo. We watched drivers building up their pace and building up their confidence over the course of that session. This was Nico Müller, a slight lock-up for him down in towards Mirabeau, and Maximilian Günther just getting balked by the envision of Robin Freins on one of his flying laps in the session. He made his way down in towards the Fairmont hairpin. This is Sebastian Buemi, the other Envision driver who we ride on board with. A moment there as well also for Freins. And especially traffic being a prominent issue at the end of that session. Drivers getting caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, especially in towards this swimming pool section. Keep an eye out for more of that in free practice 2 and potentially into the group stages of qualifying as well. The upshot is it's Dan Ticktum who ends FP1 fastest of the lot. A great start for the E-Prix Round team here in Monaco. Can they continue that momentum though as we head into FP2? It's on the way in just over an hour's time. Take care, and we will see you then as we continue the weekend here in Monte Carlo. Well, then we see the E-Prix Round driver of Dan Ticktum making his way back into the pit lane and up towards the garage. Due to the way that this Monaco circuit is laid out, we don't have a pit wall or anything like that here at the circuit for the drivers. So essentially they are above the garages. They have to make their way up a staircase, then they can go and debrief with their engineers at the end of that session. We just saw Oliver Rowland making his way out of the car, championship leader by 14 points over Antonio Felix da Costa. And here is your reigning world champion, that is Pascal Wehrlein. Concludes the session second fastest in the Tag Heuer Porsche. And there is Nico Müller also making his way out of the car. We saw a slight lock-up for him in the Andretti, but no real dramas for the German driver. He'll be hoping for a comfortable free practice 2 session, which is along the way in an hour here in Monte Carlo.